Onward to stage 17 and the last 4 days of racing at Milan, but the next 3 are going to be absolutely crucial, starting with this one from Brunico to Fondo Sarnocchio, 153 kilometers, and that's about 96 miles. And we have one big climb which comes around 54 kilometers from the finish, and this is an unhappy sight. This has just happened.
Well, this is a rather sad sight, because the man who went down very hard there was one of the riders from Phonak, Tadej Vlajevic, who's the Slovenian national champion, very high up in the overall classification. And this is actually something that happened to one of the Lampre riders' bikes.
This was the same crash.
This looks like Pagliarini, who's gone down very hard.
But did you see his bike was completely broken at the head tube there in 2 pieces?
And it's Ferrada at the side of the road.
Well, it doesn't look at all good for Jan.
Oh no, that's Pagliarini.
That's Pagliarini.
Ferrada was standing alongside him, but that is a very nasty crash of Pagliarini's, who was actually starting to ride pretty well.
That's a nasty gash on his neck from Pagliarini. He was riding very well this year in the Tour de Langkawi again. But that is an ugly crash there, and it was such an innocent crash too. I might be able to show it you again, but it was a touch of wheels on the climb, and Pagliarini's bike is literally in 2 halves.
Well, that's very sad, and there's a problem with the side of Damiano Cunego. What is that? It looks as if there's a problem with his derailleur. He doesn't seem to be panicking at all, does he?
Well, he's a very mature rider for his age.
Oh, he is.
He's decided he does need a new bike or a back wheel. I think it's going to be a new bike. Yes, it is.
Well, the mechanic was very quickly on hand there. You know, you see, when you are the leader of the bike race, your car is #1 in the convoy of cars, and very quickly the mechanic was up there alongside him. He's a little bit over-geared. He needs to get that gear sorted out very quickly, and I wouldn't be surprised to tilt up and see 1 or 2 teammates waiting for him.
Well, while we're watching all this happen around about at the moment, we've just seen Tonkov here as they all start to get underway. This is Bertolini. Tonkov and Bertolini, 40 kilometers into the race, have been ahead of a group of some 8 riders. And it looks as though Pavel Tonkov here on this climb is trying to go it alone.
I suppose you could say he's decided to tonk off, because that's certainly what he's doing here. He's looked down and seen there's a little bit of a problem with Bertolini. He's decided to try and go out on his own. A very strong bike rider. He's done a lot in this Giro d'Italia to stay alongside Stefano Garzelli, but Garzelli this year in the Giro certainly hasn't come up to the mark. Pavel Tonkov may well be riding his last Giro d'Italia. He's another one of those riders who seems to have retired every year for the last 12 months.
Well, I'll tell you, this rider's record is worth recalling. He finished 5th in this race in 1993, 11 years ago. He was 4th in 94, 6th in 95, and then he won it in 1996. And now, 4 kilometers to go, he's looking like at least salvaging a stage win from this. He finished 2nd in the Giro in 97 and 98, and 5th in 2000, 2002. Finally slipping to a mere still a 5th place with a stage win in 2002.
The amazing thing, though, about Pavel Tonkov, he never really appears to be going very well. It's because he actually uses rather a large gear, and he sits right there rock solid on the machine and turns over at a very low cadence, but it is a very efficient cadence for Pavel Tonkov, and he's opening up a pretty serious gap now over Bertolini, and the remnants of that early morning breakaway are still a fair way behind.
Well, Alessandro Bertolini was the early aggressor for Alessio. He was with Oscar Pozzi at the time from Tenax. They got quite a lead. Tonkov was the man that bridged to them, and now he's dispatched them all, I think. And it's looking very, very good. Well, he spent the whole race really in support of Stefano Garzelli, but I think the day before the rest day, Garzelli showed us that he wasn't up for the race this year.
Well, a lot of people have said, where's the devil? Well, there he is, and still very prominent at the side of the majority of the races on the international calendar around the world. But I've always been amazed at this style here of Pavel Tonkov, because it always looks as if he's on the edge of absolutely cracking, but it's a very efficient style for him. It seems to pay off. And at the front end of the group there, we've got a lot of work being done here by the Denardi riders for Serhiy Honchar.
And that will bring Charlie Wegelius back into play here, because Honchar is having another great tour, and this could be his best ever finish if he can keep it up. He has worn the Maglia Rosa in the past, but a 2nd place finish would be simply superb for him.
Well, after that early moment of panic for Damiano Cunego, he's very comfortably surrounded by the majority of the red armada of Team Saeco. This, over the last few kilometers, has slimmed down to being a very small select group once again. Maybe not the big sort out we expected to happen on this stage here this afternoon, but certainly an interesting race route. and a race route that has turned to allow the attackers the advantage on a day before the real big mountain passes to come, because the next 2 days of this Giro d'Italia are going to be very difficult indeed.
Well, we're hearing that in fact the two Lampre riders who crashed have gone to hospital, so they're out of the race. And we're looking at 3 kilometers to go here now as the pressure again goes on. This is Christian Marini again, I think.
That was Bertolini, who's in second place on the road at the moment, just trying to get across here to Pavel Tonkov. Tonkov should be riding up here to a very satisfying stage victory. And still amazing, Phil, over this last week. There have been so many signs at the side of the road for Il Pirata. This is the race situation at the front on the left-hand side. Pavel Tonkov leading Bertolini. And he's leading him at the moment by around about a minute. So he's really stretching out his advantage over these last couple of kilometers.
Living up to his big name. First Russian rider ever to win the Tour of Switzerland, and he was the second Russian rider to win the Giro d'Italia behind Evgeny Berzin. And today he's going to be the first Russian rider to win a stage, at least today, because he's not going to get caught now.
On the front, just taking away that very strange style of his, but one of absolute and utter power. Second man on the road, losing time every kilometer, every pedal stroke here for Bertolini. Bertolini had hoped, I think, he could stay in contact with Pavel Tonkov.
He's absolutely shattered by the look of it.
Tonkov attacked him at exactly the right time. Tonkov waited for the slight incline where he could get the advantage, and here you can see taking up the reins at the front end of the main field. It's Team Saeco, as it has been. And I actually thought over the first week of racing here at the Giro that they were doing far too much work. They were all on fire. They were dedicated to their leader, Gilberto Simoni, and they've kept the power in their legs, and they've also still got the possibility of a backup if something happens to their man Damiano Cunego.
Well, the devil jumping for joy down there. Now it's quite a compact group, but that contains all the men that matter in this year's Giro, including Garzelli, who's having a better day today than he was the day before yesterday's rest day. And this is probably why Tonkov has felt free to have a go for a stage win for himself. Good day to choose, because the riders don't like the day after the rest day. They're stiff and they don't feel so good on many occasions. And in fact, the rider here, Bertolini, is losing rapidly ground on the leader. And he better watch out from behind, because this group, being paced yet again by Saeco in favour now of Damiano Cunego, is beginning to close in on him.
Well, Cunego doesn't look like a man who had a difficult rest day there. He's very well recovered, and look at the little gear he's using compared to the teammates that are around him. Cruising into the finish now, 1 minute and 40 seconds over the second place rider, and almost 2 minutes back to the main field. Nobody is going to challenge this man at all, Pavel Tonkov. What an incredible crowd that have turned out to witness this man's victory here this afternoon.
Well, he'll get the win, and it won't affect the overall classification at all. But it'll look great on his overall honours list when he retires, which can't be too far away now. He's 35 years of age, Pavel Tonkov. That chase group is 22 strong now, and it's being paced as we would expect by the Saeco team. But they are closing on Bertolini. He's not safe for second yet, but there's nobody going to catch the leader. Here they come.
Charging up here a little bit further back in about 5th, 6th position there, you can see Vladimir Belli. It is a very small group indeed. Honchar is not too far off the mark. Jaroslav Popovic is in this group. Everybody of note has managed to get their feet onto the back seat of the bus here this afternoon, as we now go through the little streets here of Fondo Sammarinko. Pavel Tonkov not going to be challenged at all, and increasing his advantage over the man in second position. Losing a little bit of time to the main field, who are whipping up the pace over the last few kilometres, but they are not going to get anywhere near him this afternoon.
I think that shot of the large peloton was what we would call the autobus, because it came from the helicopter. They've gone over the top of that climb over 13 minutes behind the leader on the road. So they're out of it, to say the least, for the day. This is our dealer here from Colombia, rides for Jocolar Jacques. Young Colombian rider, no big victories to his credit yet, as he comes and rejoins. I'm not too sure where he is at the minute.
He's just jumped off the front end of the pink jersey group, and that's not really a very good way to earn yourself friends on a race like this, when you've got a team like Team Saeco doing all of the work on the front end of the main field, and you try and jump off to try and get yourself 3rd or 4th place.
So looking now at the arrival of Pavel Tonkov, not quite, but it won't be long as he races in. This is going to be a good moment for Pavel, right at the wrong end of his career, which has been a brilliant career, let's face it. I first met him when he won a stage of the milk race, which I used to organise, and he won in Nottingham in horrendously wet conditions. Took a lot of risks to win there. He was wearing the red jersey then as a member of the Soviet Union, which of course is now dissolved. Now he rides for Russia and indeed for his sponsors. Lives here in Italy, speaks the language well, and he's coming home with a stage victory in the next 800 and 500 metres to the line.
It was 15 years ago that he won that stage in the milk race back in 1990. This one he's going to enjoy. This is going to be the 34th win of his career as he comes into the finishing straight, and I think he's really going to enjoy this one.
He's had a long, fruitful time as a pro bike rider. He has won this race. He's finished in the top 6 on countless occasions overall. Those days have gone now. He'll be lucky to make a top 15 finish this time, but this breakaway will help lift him right up in the overall classification today. He's gained a lot of time over a lot of riders. As he comes up to the line, Pavel Tonkov takes the victory. We expected to see his team captain winning, but he hasn't had chance yet, Garzelli, so Tonkov has made more than amends here. As he freewheels in, the clock has started. There'll be no pink jersey for him, but pretty sure that he will climb up the overall classification. Bertolini, who was in this breakaway some 66 kilometres into the stage, he went clear today, Bertolini, and he was with Oscar Pozzi at the time, and then Tonkov caught them both. They got rid of Pozzi. Bertolini has been a bit tougher to dump, and I have to say he deserves that second place for sure, but he can't be more than about 40 seconds ahead of that group.
And he's still not got to the red kite either. It's a long ride to the finish. He's already had a win this year. That was very early on in the season, back in February. That was in the Tour de Luca, which is not too far away from where we are at the finish line in Milano. And here you can see the main field coming up, and they are slowly but surely getting that little bit closer to Bertolini. I think he's going to survive, but if you look at the position he's adopting on the bike here, you can see and almost feel how heavy those legs of his are starting to get. A minute and 6 seconds since Tonkov came in.
Time is counting on, and so Tonkov has really ridden strongly over those last few kilometres there. Tonkov, last time a Russian rider won a stage, by the way, in the Giro d'Italia, it was Pavel Tonkov when he won stage 17 2 years ago. Now there's an interesting coincidence, wasn't it?
Stage 17, yeah. It's almost the same distance into the event. And this is the second man on the road, and not too far behind the main field. The last time check we got, they were just 30 seconds behind him. He will survive for second place, but you can almost see the way those legs are starting to buckle. It's not been an easy second place.
Now here they are in the straight, in fact. There's Garzelli too, had a much better day today. But this is good for Bertagnoli. He knows now where he is. But as he comes up towards the line now, second place goes his way. Salutes the crowd. Bertolini rather, not Bertagnoli, I should have said, as he gets second place, and the gap there it is about 2:15 on the line. And here's the group, and they were only about 500. Well, they weren't that, were they, behind him? He only just got in, but that's all that matters as they come clear here now. And there's going to have to be, and they're going to have a sprint for this too, because there's still one small time bonus here. Wouldn't surprise me if Cunego doesn't try to snick just a couple of seconds, because he packs a sprint and he's going to have a go, you know. He's got a lead out here right on the wheel of Brad McGee. It's a long way, 150 metres. No, it looks as though the rider in front might take it, but no, he's made the big mistake. And look at that, Cunego and McGee head to head. And I think McGee has just stopped Cunego, increasing his lead by a couple of seconds.
Well, Brad McGee really is turning out to be an incredible bike rider. I actually feel expected to see him ride well over the first 10 or 12 days, then start to disappear away from the top end of the overall classification. But here he is, still 17 days into the race and still riding at the front end of the classification. Tonkov wins the stage ahead of Bertolini. McGee leading home the rest ahead of Cunego. Pelizzotti in 5th place. Garzelli getting himself a place in the top 10 there, but maybe not the place that he wanted.
No, he was the rider who was just jumped away. I didn't spot him there, but he got caught on the line. Shouldn't have looked over his shoulder. Pavel Tonkov, however, puts the money in the bank for his team today. Cunego keeps his lead, could have increased this by a few seconds, but he wasn't able to over Honchar, Popovic, Simoni, and McGee rides high now in 5th place. And that is tremendous with just 3 days of racing to come. And that's what this rider's thinking about as well. Milan is getting closer. And as we move on now to the 18th stage and the 19th day of the Giro d'Italia, from Claise to Bormio 2000, as the name suggests, we're going mountaineering today. 118 kilometres, 74 miles in all, over the Tonale Pass, the Gavia Pass and the Bormio Pass, with a hilltop finish which will take us up to 1938 metres. And this is a little bit of a look back at how things have gone, and the man setting the pace again in the early breakaway is the leader in the King of the Mountains, Fabian Wegmann. He's gone over the Tonale there ahead of Strauss of Gerolsteiner, his teammate, and Gomez of Saunier Duval. I have to say, Paul, this man's beginning to deserve that title.
He's absolutely remarkable. I don't think I can cast my mind back. What I would have to go back a long way through the record books to see a man who is not really a big climber getting the title in a race like the Giro d'Italia. I'd have to go back to possibly one of my own teammates, a man by the name of Bernard Vallet, who won the King of the Mountains in the Tour de France by building up the advantage in the early, smaller climbs and just managing to hold on towards the end.
Well, he was 2:45 ahead of the Tonale, but this is the Gavia Pass in amongst the snow line, the high spot of the race at 2,621 metres. And Mihajlovic heading Stefano Garzelli there by 1 minute and 5 seconds. The pink jersey of Cunego is back at 2 minutes and 55 seconds, and Wegmann out of the frame at that point. And onward we go now as we head up towards the Bormio Intergiro and onto the final climb of the day, which will take us up to the finish. But just look at the snow line here as we're amongst it on the Gavia.
Well, there have been a lot of rumours over the last few days and leading up to this stage that we weren't going to be able to come this way, because it was being told that the Passo di Gavia was completely and utterly blocked. And as you can see, the snow has been pretty deep, and they've managed to carve a way through for the bike race here this afternoon.
And a little bit lower down, but in some beautiful countryside now in the Dolomites as the riders continue. And just making the time here. This is Mihajlovic. Oh, I really do have trouble with this Croatian's name. He should have done this sort of a ride in his home country when we passed through it, but he's still out front. He was 1 minute and 5 seconds ahead at the top of the climb, but he's looking to me now as though 2:5. So 50 seconds is all the Cunego's group has pulled back here on the Bormio.
Eddie Mazzolini doing a job of work here for this man, Damiano Cunego. I am sure right now, Phil, he is ticking the days off. He's really only got today and tomorrow to survive, because nobody's going to challenge him on the final day as the race goes into Milano. But what a great performance he's put in the Giro d'Italia so far, and I think if anybody is ever going to challenge him, it'll be his own teammate Gilberto Simoni. But Simoni doesn't really seem to have the firepower in this race to get the gap on everybody else in the big mountain passes.
Well, Cunego doesn't have to worry about the rider out front, Mihajlovic, because he was in the early breakaway of 20 men that went away after 16 kilometres. He's the survivor out on his own, but the charge is coming now. Pelozzotti here sitting behind Stefano Garzelli, and they are sailing out of the back door here.
Simoni.
Here we go. Simoni on the attack now. He's attacking his own teammate at this point.
That's not going to make him very popular with the Italian crowd. But let's not forget, I think what he might be doing here, Phil, is trying to ride himself into a podium position. And we'll have to see just exactly how Damiano Cunego handles this. Cunego is sitting there currently, Phil. He's not challenging at all. He's not asking Eddie Mazzolini to whip up the pace. He's leaving it up to the teammates of Vladimir Belli, while the pressure at the front is really not saying a very good word to Stefano Garzelli.
Well, this is the typical 1-2 I think we would expect now from Saeco. They're starting with Simoni. If he gets brought back, what's the bets that Cunego will try? That looks like, in fact, it's Selle launching an attack again. We haven't seen too much of him since that wonderful stage when he got a while ago now at Cesena on stage 11 of the Giro, but he's still very much in this race and looking for a high finish in Milan. There he goes again with the same aggressive style we've seen on 2 occasions in this tour so far.
Well, this really has been a great Giro for the youngsters, and I think that's a young man we'll see an awful lot more of in the future. You see, once again, Gilberto Simoni has attacked and got the gap here, and what's happening now? This is the man from the pink jersey. Damiano Cunego has leapt out of the front, and in fact he's chasing down Dario Cioni there.
Cioni still having a wonderful ride despite all the work he's done for Alessandro Petacchi.
Well, I think it's only really in the last 2 or 3 days that the team manager Giancarlo Ferretti has said to Cioni, well, you're doing pretty well, young man, try and stay up in the top 10 overall if you can, but has not stopped him at all, leading the teammates of leading Alessandro Petacchi on the flat stages.
Well, Selle has caught up with Simoni, can you believe that? And he's now sitting there. Simoni clearly not the man he was a year ago, because Selle would never have caught him last year. There's Honchar, second wheel. He's come up to the pink jersey now. He still holds that second place overall. There's a regrouping here, but it's a specialist selection.
But what is happening is Damiano Cunego is not chasing down. I think Cunego could leap across this gap if he wanted to and catch Gilberto Simoni. But what he wants is for Gilberto Simoni to leapfrog over one or two of the other riders in front of him and try and get himself a podium position. So he's just sitting back and seeing how the race unfolds. All he has to do is look after Honchar and, of course, to look after the other riders in the race.
McGee, who's third overall, remember, fifth overall rather. Honchar. And I think, you know, you're right. This is a... Do you remember with the old Soviet Union? I mentioned the Soviet Union when we talked about Pavel Tonkov, but the old Soviet Union, when they used to put their teams into big stage races, they moved their men up like pawns until they had total command of the overall classification. And that's what Saeco are doing right now, moving their men up.
Simoni, he won't get very much help from Emanuel Selle for the moment. Selle's made the effort to get across to the gap to the man who's won the Giro d'Italia on 2 occasions and now is trying to get himself a podium position if he can. But Selle has ridden a very good, clear, solid Giro d'Italia. He's got himself a stage victory. He's been an integral part in the attempt to get Giuliano Figueras up high in the overall classification. Chione's done a brilliant ride there. He's on the front there for Fassa Bortolo. Honchar, let's not forget, is in second place in the standings, and he is looking very solid here and looking like a man who is more than certainly going to finish in the top 3 in Paris.
I don't know if you saw that, but Honchar then almost hit the back wheel of Cunego. Had to swerve away from it, tried to make it too tight on the hairpin. All safe and sound again. Emanuel Selle. What is this man thinking here when he looks around and he sees the defending Tour champion sitting on his back wheel?
Well, a few moments ago...
they're coming back, look at this.
They are. Chione's doing a great job. Chione is actually pulling them back slowly but surely, and I don't think the man who's won the Giro on 2 occasions is going to be very happy at all about this. Saeco are in a very strong position because they've got Gilberto Simoni there, and back in reserve, if they need him, is Eddie Mazzolini, the man who is their domestique's domestique.
Well, this is amazing cycling here because, you know, we're looking at the Slovenian champion there, Valjezvec, sitting at the back. He's also having a good ride today. But Cunego is being put back into a situation here where he hasn't had to worry about his team captain at all. Thanks to Dario Cioni, he's coming right back into the scene and could still gain time over most of the riders today.
This is not the great Gilberto Simoni, and I wonder if he's thinking of staggering his form here, because if he's not ridden well in the Giro d'Italia, he may well have a chance to have a renaissance in the Tour de France, which he's going to ride later on in the season. Dario Cioni, though, is really riding a superb race there. And I think, looking back at Cioni's career, I'm not sure that he's ever won himself a bike race.
Well, Dario Cioni certainly trying to put matters to rights. He hasn't won a stage of the Giro, that's for sure. There's still a couple of days in which he might shine. But this is a battle here for supremacy, not just between rivals, I think, but between two friends on the same team. And if Cunego is still in the pink tonight, well, there'll be no more action coming from Simoni. Simoni just wants to move up from that 4th place overall. I think that's all he can expect now, because Cunego doesn't look as though he's losing control of this race. He is absolutely confident. He's always riding near Eddie Mazzolini there, looks after him. Honchar rocking and rolling. I'm surprised Gonchar's stage looks a little bit heavy for the mountains.
Well, he rides on complete and utter power. They're catching the man who led this race, Milo Hejic. He's just been dispatched very rapidly, so Gilberto Simoni now in a position where he's got the chance to get himself the stage victory. The man missing from that group of Cunego is Jaroslav Popovic. He's disappeared once again under a lot of pressure this afternoon. Just 6 kilometers left to go, but Simoni is not opening up very much of a gap on the pink jersey group.
Looking at the face here, this guy Honchar, he looks a little bit tired to say the least, but Milo Hejic has been in the lead for almost 90 kilometers. That was a great ride by that rider today. He's going to be suffering for the finish now, but he hasn't got too far to go. 6 kilometers here for the leaders. It's all uphill, remember. Dear me, look at this young man. He's having a great Giro now.
He's got certainly something to write home about. He's been at the front end of the Giro d'Italia with one of the great champions of the last couple of seasons, Gilberto Simoni. I think this group is starting to slow down just a little bit because riders are starting to come back from the rear. On the left-hand side, you can just see Vladimir Belli on the right-hand side. The other Lampre rider is Garate. And also this is Popovic riding himself back into the race. So obviously this group is starting to slow down. Julio Perez has rejoined as well.
They do all look pretty tired, I have to say, and Julio Perez is coming back, and he seems to have found his form in this last week and is putting himself in good shape. There he is at the bottom right picture at the back with those dark glasses on. Cunego here will feel everything's under control over what is a mountain's top finish at Bormio 2000 now.
Well, Popovic has done very well indeed here. He's almost rejoined this group. It's Garate on the front doing the pacemaking now, trying to pull it all back together, and a gap now starting to appear between Emanuele Selle and Gilberto Simoni, but their gap over the group of the pink jersey is a mere 18 seconds.
The one man we're missing though, Paul, is Brad McGee, and he was in 5th place overall. I haven't seen him in that group yet. And here goes Selle now. Simoni just let the young man work hard. He's now jumped him to put him in his place, and Simoni now goes for the win and to try and recuperate what seconds he can. But remember, he also gets that 20 seconds win bonus, and there's his distance of 2:38, don't forget, is behind Cunego, and Simoni not damaging that lead of Cunego's.
No, what he's trying to do and the team are trying to do is leapfrog him up the overall classification to try and get 2 men onto the podium when this race goes into Milano. He's not, though, Phil, building up a massive advantage over that group who are not really chasing him. They're just riding sensibly. There is Popovic, and if we pull back, we get a chance to see that he is rejoining the group. So put under pressure at the start of the climb, he's ridden himself back into this race.
Well, that puts a chasing group there of 10 riders, and Bradley McGee wasn't in that group, not from the jerseys I could see there from the helicopter, so he's somewhere behind, and I don't know exactly where right now. As we continue up this very compact group, not showing any signs of desisting, and they're all shouting, come on, there's Yibo, which is his name. Oh dear me, crashed by spectator. There'll be no service for him, I'm afraid, as this rider, Gilberto Simoni, continues now to climb towards the finish.
He's getting into his own rhythm now. He's completely and utterly... we got a replay of the crash of the spectators now. That's pretty good. He went down quite hard.
He did.
Simoni out of the saddle. This climb is a very good climb for him now. It looks as if that would be Julio Perez who's leapt off the front.
No, it's Selle coming back.
Oh yeah, of course.
Selle coming back, yeah. And that's going to make 11 riders in the group now, because they're going to pick him up pretty shortly.
There's Belli on the left-hand side. There is Perez on the right, complete left-hand side of the race. And Popovic has just managed to get himself onto the back end of this group, just onto the tail of Dario Cioni.
Garati dancing on the pedals. More cheers for Yibo as he continues to find his rhythm of old. It's a pretty tough climb this, but it's a nice steady one, and he's keeping it going. Tailwind, which helps on the climbs, of course. It'll help him keep the rhythm nice and high. They're going to beat 4 hours for the race distance today. I suppose they should. It's only 74 miles, but we have topped 3 big climbs. Now, what's happened
Cioni
here?
now
There's Selle.
Cioni's
gone. Cunego's marked him straight away. This could be his ticket to the front.
This is unbelievable. But he's riding a great team race here. He's not doing anything at all. I think he could leap across that gap very easily if he wanted to. Cioni has decided, I want to try and pull myself up just that little higher in the overall classification, and he's gone off in pursuit. Honchar has pulled himself back into the event as well. This is how it happened. What a great move by Cioni, but look how easily it is for this young man, Damiano Cunego, 22 years of age, just to leap onto the gap. This man is not going to get beaten in the Giro.
No, he's marked everything. He's riding with the maturity of a 30-year-old, not a 22-year-old. Simoni, last year's Giro champion. He's not going to lie down either. 2-time winner, wants to make it 3. But he can't attack his own teammate. He's looking now just to make a podium finish. And it's looking as though he's going to have to struggle to do this, because there he is. Hardly a huge time gain and nowhere near the finishing line yet. And it's putting Cunego back in the picture here. This is Popovic. Swing right, let's have a look. Is he losing ground or is he gaining ground? Because I think he's under pressure again here.
And once again, you see the difficult thing for Popovic is he's completely and utterly isolated. Rejoining the leader, Gilberto Simoni. No wins to his credit this season, but he did finish 3rd overall in the Giro de Trentino just about a week before the start of this race. Looking further back, yep, Popovic has popped off the back of that group, and he's only riding at his own pace, trying to pull himself slowly back into contact Now then, as we look back down the road, Gilberto Simoni is still holding on to a slight advantage, but I think he's going to get caught before the summit.
It's a lovely climb as well, a beautiful climb it is, especially of course if you're a climber, and those three are catching him up, and it's all under the inspiration there of Dario Cioni. And I think Cunego will be just loving this, exactly what he wanted, being carried up. He wanted Simoni, I think, to gain enough time to go second. He wouldn't have gained enough time to take the Maglia Rosa because that's not possible on this climb right now. But we're putting ourselves in a position here where Cunego could win the day.
I think Cunego could win the day. He's just sitting there. He's the man who's easiest in that group. One thing they have to do, though, is pull back the man at the front. Cunego is being given an awful lot of assistance here by two of his rivals because Dario Cioni is pulling back the gap between himself and Gilberto Simoni. Simoni has never been more than 20 seconds off the front end of this group, and I would say right now, if we did an exact time check, it would be not very much more than 10 seconds advantage with 4 kilometers to go. And the fact that he's looking over his shoulder there is an indication that he is not very confident at all.
Well, Cioni, at 30 years of age, has not turned in many race-winning performances, but today it looks as though he's going to lift himself up for a high finish. He did have a good Tour of Romandy, which is a stage race in Switzerland before this race begins, only just before, and he got 5th place in that, and that was a good indicator he should be a challenger here, and so it's proving to be. This is Garate just at the back of the race here, and teamed up with Vladimir Belli, very consistent rider. Gibo is slowing down, and the Three Musketeers are running him down.
Slowly but surely, and it's Dario Cioni who's doing all of the work, and all that Damiano Cunego has to do is just sit there, because if they do catch Gilberto Simoni, he has got very fresh legs. Every time there's an acceleration, he's immediately there, immediately in contact. I think he could jump across this gap very easily indeed, but he's decided this afternoon he wants to be a team player. Here's Emmanuel Selle at the back. Unbelievable. He's
hanging on to the group now that's picked him up, and there he is on our bottom left of our picture. The three riders behind are pulling away from that group, and still no signs of Brad McGee there. He could be losing his 5th place overall. Gilberto Simoni, pan left, they're nearly on him, and it, as Paul has said, it's still the work of one Dario Cioni. Honchar, second in the race, is seeing Cioni save it for him right now, because he's coming up alongside, and it was the second place that Gilberto Simoni was aiming at on this climb.
It certainly was. The man in second place overall is about to catch him up again, and this is Julio Perez. He's trying to ride across the gap to try and rejoin the front, and I wonder what's going to be said here between Damiano Cunego and Gilberto Simoni.
Nothing. I don't think Cunego looked at him. Now it's up to Cunego. Is he going to try a cheeky attack and see if he gets any reaction from the other two? Maybe he'll feel obliged not to attack now, because I think if Cunego attacked, he would probably dispatch Gilberto Simoni behind the race, and that's not the nature of the game.
And of course he doesn't need to attack right now. He just needs to be defensive. He's got one big mountain stage to go after this one, and if he defends, then he's going to ride into Milano in the pink jersey as a 22-year-old. Testa della Corsa, 4 riders at the front. Serhiy Honchar has actually lost a little bit of weight over the last couple of seasons to try and improve his climbing and ability, and that certainly has paid off this year, because he's able to accompany all of the riders in the big mountain passes. This man is not really a climber. He's much better known as an individual time trialist, but what he's been able to do this year is stay in contact with the leaders in the big mountains.
He almost looks as though he's sitting too low in the saddle for the mountains there. He's hardly stretching those legs, is he? Look at the different pedaling style of Cunego. This is Selle. Boy, if anything this man has learnt in the Giro, it's how to suffer pain, and this is his team leader here, Julio Perez. Well, let's say a more experienced team rider. He's not really the PANARIA team leader, but he's on the back now. That's a 5-man sprint in prospect.
Well, he's come right across the gap here and rejoined them. That's an incredible move by Julio Perez. Not been quite as brilliant in the big mountains this year as he has in years gone by. In fact, let's not forget he's won stages in the Giro d'Italia, and of course he's been the winner of the King of the Mountains classification. These guys looking over their shoulders now to see if there's going to be a general regrouping as we get slowly but surely closer to the finish. And look how easy Damiano Cunego is. Oh, but Perez, Phil, is riding up this mountain on the big chainring while everybody else is on the small chainring.
I noticed that when he joined on, first ever winner from Mexico of a stage of the Giro d'Italia a couple of years ago. He's also won the amateur Giro d'Italia as well. That's how we first heard of him. But right now, he would like to make amends and pick up a stage win. seems to be feeling the chill air today, although he lives here in Italy, speaks fluent Italian. He's been living in Italy since 1997, in fact. Now he needs a stage win. Simoni clearly hasn't quite got that magical form of last year. He just needs he's got plenty of fitness, but not that magical word we call form.
He hasn't got the form, he hasn't got that ability to open up the gap and maintain it. In fact, that second group on the road is not very far behind either, because they're slowly but surely clawing their way back. It's up now to that man Serhiy Honchar doing all of the work. The other guys in this group don't really have an interest in opening up the gap over everybody else. Damiano Cunego is in a defensive role, and all he's got to think about is the next 24 hours. But this man is one of the other great revelations. We just caught a quick glimpse there of Emanuele Selle, and it'd be nice to see how he can ride in the Giro d'Italia next year and the year after, when he gets a couple more years experience under his belt.
A little bit more strength. He's only 23. This man's only 22. Cunego looks for the first time to be a little bit out of puff as he continues the climb. There's Cioni. And Giro, we can just see his face there, is also suffering now. This climb has got teeth all the way to the top by the look at it. And they've unhitched the late arrival, Julio Perez, and I think he might be going here. Didn't quite recover from the chase because the pace has been pretty severe, but again, it's under the impetus of Damiano Cunego, who seems to just set these rhythms that nobody else can match.
Well, right now he's have to assume the role of the leader of the bike race. He's wearing the pink jersey, and it's his job really to dictate the pacemaking on the front end of the main field. Here is Popovic trying to keep himself up in the high placings in the overall classification, trying to defend, trying to go better than he did last year when he finished in third place in the overall classification. Cioni is with the leading group of between 4 and 5. It just depends on whether or not Julio Perez has managed to stay in contact.
And Serhiy Honchar, who won the time trial at Trieste and has since hovered in the high places. He's still holding on to second here. That would be a tremendous result for him. But there's still one more mountain stage to come and the finish into Milan before he can be assured of that. But he's done a good ride today. This has been a big test, I think, for Honchar to stay up with the big pure climbers. You look at the size of Honchar and then compare him with the size here of Cunego. It's the difference between hauling a bag of potatoes up the mountain and half a bag of crisps, I think.
Absolutely. There he is, number 61. He's riding very defensively now. He's also consolidating on his second place in the overall standings here at the Giro. And he's opening up a gap over the men behind, men like Jaroslav Popovic. Stefano Garzelli nowhere to be seen here this afternoon, and of course Bradley McGee, who started the day in 5th place in the overall classification. He too seems to have disappeared. Just 23 seconds between the leading group on the road and the group of Jaroslav Popovic, who we just caught a glimpse of there.
Well, we haven't seen Brad McGee, but we are hearing that he is still very much on the mountain and is contacting the remnants of that chase group. Well, I wish we could see a picture of him. If that's true, he's coming in pretty close. He might yet hang on.
He might just hold on, and he's probably riding this climb in his very own rhythm, not panicking at all. Brad McGee has been unbelievable over this Giro d'Italia. An incredible fighter. A man who came into the race with a reputation of being a short distance individual time trialist, and to be just a few days to go to the finish in 5th place overall is a fair reference for the future.
Well, the crowd at its thickest, always a sure sign. The summit is approaching at 1,200 metres. Not too far to go now, and I would never have predicted a 5-man sprint for the line. Remember the small bonuses too. Cunego has got to go for them. A chance to move ahead a little bit of Serhiy Honchar, who's not a good sprinter. And also Simoni wants those small bonuses. Really, they shouldn't be counting time bonuses on the mountain. They should have been gaining time in real terms rather than in bonus time. There's the kilometre. Here's Stefano Garzelli. Don't know where he is on the course. The camera's gone back to him, but he's not enjoying it wherever he is.
He's not having a great day inside the last kilometre right now, and surely Stefano Garzelli is going to try and keep himself in the top 10 overall, but further up it's a big battle of supremacy with the leading group of 5 here. Damiano Cunego out of the saddle once again, still a very energetic pedalling style that he's got, and I wonder if in the back of his mind he'll try and lead out the sprint for Gilberto Simoni, who's no stranger to winning at the top of big mountain passes.
We're going to know in 1,000 metres now, as they're going to line up for what is very definitely a 5-rider sprint for the summit. And Cunego was very generous in his pacemaking, but he's taken second wheel now to get the advantage over Serhiy Honchar. There's no doubt that Cunego is looking for a 4th stage win here. As things continue now, I don't think Honchar can keep this pace up, but take my hat off to him. He's worthy of second place. He's not afraid to set the pace amongst the leaders. Dario Cioni, a likely winner here, and would deserve it, the way he chased down single-handedly the attack by Gilberto Simoni.
Well, yeah, it'd be great for the man in 3rd position there to get the win, because in fact you've got to go back a long way in his career. He has won one professional race. It was in the Tour of Slovenia, and that was a long time ago. But this is a man who came across to road racing from mountain biking. I think the big favourite for the win, though, does have to be Damiano Cunego. Just look at the way, look at him, he's so nervous. He's looking over his shoulders, looking to see what the gaps are. He's in complete control of the situation here this afternoon, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not there's going to be any work done between the 2 riders from Team Saeco.
Well, Serhiy Honchar still second overall in the Giro d'Italia. Oh, I thought we'd just seen an attack then from Perez, but no. He put his head round the corner and quickly got back in behind these 4.
He certainly did. I think he's just happy to be in contact with the group. He's been dropped on a number of occasions and ridden himself back into the race. Still a great job of work being done by Honchar, and I can't wait to see the opening up of the acceleration, which is going to come from Cunego.
Well, that's the second group on the road, still showing a lot of determination. They're not very far behind. If there's any finesse in this group, they could be up here as well. No one is helping Honchar. The 2 Saeco riders are lining up purely for the sprint. The only man to spoil the party would be Cioni, but that won't happen because Cunego has this fearsome acceleration. We are talking a timed gap here as he sprints clear. It won't just be a bonus on the line. There will be a separate time for the leader. Now that's the way to win the Giro. When you cross the line on top of a mountain wearing the leader's jersey in 2 days' time, there's no doubt now this man will win the Giro d'Italia. His 4th stage win. Damiano Cunego, look at the gap. It's 5 or 6 seconds on the line. Cioni gets second. Honchar gets third. And I think that's proof that Gilberto Simoni is tiring as he comes over in 4th place.
Well, Simoni was in the right place at the right time there when the acceleration came from Damiano Cunego. If he had anything at all in his legs, he should have been able to go with that. I don't think he can say anything wrong at all about that performance of his teammate, getting himself another stage victory at the Giro d'Italia. This is the remnants of the big names of this Giro. There is Vladimir Belli, here is Garate coming up, and it's Eddie Mazzolini who actually leads them home there in 6th place.
And he puts his hand in the air. Here comes Popovic. And Popovic will be over in 8th, so there's 9th and 10th. Now keep your eyes open. Brad McGee must be around somewhere. They said he was coming up. That is Garzelli, who's still a lot further down, as Garzelli makes his way up the mountain here, but he's lost more time today. And there is Brad McGee, the clock saying 1 minute precisely. The way he was zigzagging, he has committed himself 100% today, but he might have saved a high overall position.
Well, that's amazing because we never saw anything at all of Brad McGee, and in fact he's overtaken Emanuel Selle in the last couple of kilometres. He rode that race in his own rhythm, in his own style, and managed to stay within 1 minute of the big heads of state, and that is a great performance by the Australian. Stefano Garzelli, on the other hand, is losing himself once again a big chunk of time.
I think he's a little bit demoralised here because he's normally head-to-head with Simoni. They've swapped around victories in the Giro d'Italia in the past, but now there's been an intrusion on the scene. One young Damiano Cunego has spoilt the party for them both, and they're having to take second place to him, and I think it's probably a little bit depressing for Stefano Garzelli. Look at the time, another 2 minutes plus conceded today, and he'll be slipping down the overall. Hits the line at 2:03, maybe 2:04.
Well, he lost a big chunk of time over that last few kilometres, but the day belonged to this man. The way to win a stage of a Grand Tour is with the leader's jersey on your shoulder, and what an incredible acceleration. And actually, a lot of people have been resembling this man, Phil, to a certain man who raced at a very young age to victory in the Giro d'Italia, Giuseppe Saroni, who had that incredible burst of speed like this man as well, and able to open up a gap. And he was given a 5-second gap there over Dario Cioni, and an almost 10-second gap back to Gilberto Simoni.
So he's going to feel safe, but not done and dusted, because now tomorrow we go over the Mortirolo climb, which will take us up to nearly 1900 metres. It's going to be a final tough day in the saddle before we race into Milan. There's the situation. He increases his lead to 1:31. Simoni comes up into third. Popovic down into fourth.
Well, Simoni got what he wanted on the day. He moved up to a podium position. I think he had his eye on second place, but Serhiy Honchar was much too good for that.
So the final weekend in the 87th, the Giro d'Italia. There we are, bang in the middle of the mountains. Stage 19 taking us from Bormio to Prestolana, 75 miles or 122 kilometres. We'll be up amongst the snow again today. 140 riders still survive, and if they don't drop out today, they're going to see Milan tomorrow. I'm picking up the action here now. 10 riders have been shaping the race all day today, and nobody of any importance. We expected the early breakaways to get clear. Raffaele Illiano was the first man over the Mortarolo, ahead of, guess who? Fabian Wegmann, who is now confirming himself as the winner of the King of the Mountains, and he was the man that won the very first climb at the start of the Giro d'Italia.
We expected him to be the leader for only a few days, but every day he's been able to get himself into a breakaway situation and to get himself a few more points. This is Honchar, the front of the race, followed there by Garate. Just a little bit further back is Olivier Zog of Saunier Duval.
Well, this is going very much the way now. It's not a question of who will win the Tour. I think we're pretty much sure now that nobody's going to stop Cunego winning the Tour. It's just a question of who's going to finish behind him on the podium.
Well, Popovic, in fact, has got away here from the man in this group here, and that is the other Ukrainian in the race. And this is rather a strange situation here. We've seen a big attack come from Gilberto Simoni at the front end of the race. Another bid to try and move himself higher up in the overall classification. They're being chased further down the road by all of the other riders in the event, but Jaroslav Popovic is also trying to move himself up into second place and has just put a little bit of pressure onto the shoulders of Serhiy Honchar.
Well, this is a free-for-all now in the last 5 kilometres. Raffaele Illiano has been the hero of the day over the top of the Mortarolo. He also won the intergiro at Milono. And Garzelli has also had a great ride. Vivioni, he was first over the climb there and over Prestolana. So Garzelli, having had a pretty disastrous day yesterday, now driving here with Gilberto Simoni and the champion there of Slovenia, Tadej Valjevic.
A little further down the road, Dario Cioni again doing a magnificent ride, and once again Damiano Cunego. Phil, you've got to say he has played the absolute and utter teammate whenever he can. He's been trying to offer some glory in this Giro d'Italia to the man who wears number 1 as the defending champion, Gilberto Simoni. But what an unbelievable crowd that have turned out here for the final weekend.
Now this is on the climb of the Prestolana, and this is the best crowd I think we've seen. They're all decked out for the chill weather on top of the mountain. All the cheers, just watch them as Simoni goes through. He's still a very popular rider, and they've unhitched now Valjevic. He's given best as the crowd try to catch up with 2 men at the front now, and 2 great rivals and 2 former winners of the Giro. Well, Stefano Garzelli and Gilberto Simoni.
It's amazing. This is the mano a mano. This is the race that we expected to see, but it's coming just a little bit too late. It's a big battle between the 2 former champions. A little bit further down the slopes, Dario Cioni, to me, has been an unbelievable revelation in the Giro d'Italia this year. And of course, Damiano Cunego. Just look at the way he's just sitting there. Very comfortable, no problem at all, but they're finding it very difficult to get through this unbelievable crowd that's turned out for the last big climb of the Giro.
Well, this rider knows he is climbing to the biggest victory of his life here on the wheel again of Dario Cioni. Meanwhile, up ahead, there's 3 riders. One's been dropped back now as Stefano Garzelli. It's his last chance at winning a stage. This is his final shot, and is he going to salvage it and do exactly what Simoni has done, salvage a stage win, because they can't win the Giro this year.
Well, he had a pretty good start to the season. Early on, Stefano Garzelli won himself the overall classification of the race in Spain, the Tour of Aragon. Got himself a stage win in Romandy just a little bit later on in the end of April.
4 kilometres to go. We top out with 3 kilometres to go, so I guess that makes 1 kilometre to climb to the top of the Prestolana. And we've got Garzelli, Simoni. Valjevec is still ahead of these two. And I thought I just saw him, but no, it's the spectator standing there. So he's still in no man's land between the two leaders. Further down, Serhiy Honchar here under the red escort of Saeco.
Well, Honchar's trying to keep himself in second place in the overall classification. The final kilometre of the final climb of the Giro d'Italia right now. Look at the gap starting to open. Garzelli trying to get rid of Gilberto Simoni if he can. But Simoni's still got a little bit of gas left in the tank as he just pulls himself back up to the rear wheel of the man in the yellow jersey.
These are the riders further back at 4 kilometres, about 750 metres between them, and there's an attack by Garzelli. Simoni has responded and comes back. How could he not in front of this crowd?
Well, that's obviously because Garzelli doesn't think he's got the sprint left in his legs here. He's trying to win this stage on his own, but Gilberto Simoni has moved up into third place in the overall classification, and with a good ride here this afternoon, he may well just steal second away from Serhiy Honchar.
Well, that is a possibility. He's going to be very, very close because, oh, and dear me, a little bit of a switch there. But Garzelli rather, back into his rhythm very quickly. Dangerous moments here for the two riders on these narrow, crowded roads. But still Garzelli is trying to get rid of Gilberto Simoni. He's got the gap again, but Simoni just won't have any of it. There's a little bit of chaos alongside us off our camera there with the motorbikes trying to run the crowd down, I think.
I think that's an understatement. There's an awful lot of chaos here. This is very much the final climb here of the Giro d'Italia, and the crowd are going mad. The photographers are going mad. In fact, I think the whole world is going mad as they accelerate up here. Stefano Garzelli getting to the summit of this climb. He shouldn't be too interested about the points. What he wants to do here this afternoon is win the stage if he can. He's not getting points there at the top of the climb. He tried to get rid of Gilberto Simoni. He wasn't able to as they go over the top here. It's around about 3 kilometres now, slightly downhill towards the finish line.
It's a little bit further back as the crowd try to restrain themselves and hold everybody back to allow the passage of the Maglia Rosa. Damiano Cunego, the winner-elect now for sure of the Giro d'Italia. Dario Cioni has become a revelation, enjoying every minute of it. 500 metres to the top of this last climb, and nobody can even pass it they want to. In fact, this is the top here. As we get out into open roads and the barriers road just before the finish, it looks as though Simoni's going to have a little go at Garzelli for the points over the top. It can only be prestige and wanting to show the public your red jersey and number 1, and he's done it. So Simoni goes over the top. 3 kilometres now to the finishing line. Garzelli in second place. We haven't seen him, but I still believe that Valjevec is in between these two and the two leaders.
Work here being done by the man in the blue and white jersey of Fassa Bortolo on all of the flat stages. In the first part of the race, he was part of the silver train that was looking after the big man, Alessandro Petacchi, who is, for the moment, probably around about half an hour behind. And I wonder what that little discussion was all about.
I'd like to know, because they're now saying, let's work together. Let's fight out the finish, perhaps, but let's work together to at least be in a position to fight out the finish. Where the helicopter is where the two leaders are. And that's not very far away at all. And Cioni, the big man he is coming to the top of the climb with a lot of power here. Now, Valjevec has indeed gone over in third place. I don't know how far ahead he is. In fact, that helicopter might be over Valjevec.
Yeah, I would think that's what it is, because there's a fairly big gap now to go across to the two leaders. And to these two riders, it's around about 40 seconds.
Nice roads for the descent. What a great descent this is. Unfortunately, a little bit of a headwind on the way down the Presolana. Might change direction just before we get down to the finish there, though. And they've got to work together. They've got to keep... Now, he's the change of direction. That'll be helpful.
Nasty little corner just coming up here. This is further down. This is the Honchar group. Eddie Mazzolini just sitting there on the wheel of Honchar, and the other man taking up the pace on third position is Pavel Tonkov.
I tell you what, Paul, this escape could well give Simoni second overall here. I thought it had all gone wrong for him yesterday. It may have all gone right for him today, and maybe that's what he said to Stefano Garzelli. You can win the stage, but you must work with me so I finish second in the race. That
could be the kind of arrangement they've come to on this descent right now, because Stefano Garzelli is giving absolutely everything on the descent. But let's not forget the time bonus is at stake as well, and this could be a very close finish. Gilberto Simoni has climbed up into third place in the overall classification, and right now he's trying to climb up into second. And what a scoop that would be for Team Saeco, first and second in the Giro. And the top team as well.
And there's the change of direction for the two leaders at 600 metres. Now let's see if it looks like as though Simoni moves over to allow Garzelli to win, or will he fight it out? He'll be torn, because a 20-second win bonus might be absolutely crucial. We just don't know the official time gap back to Honchar. But judging by the way he's flexing his legs at the back, and he's made Simoni take the lead, or has Simoni taken it voluntarily? He needs time, and the way to get time is to make the pace right up to the line. But at the same time, of course, you'll present Garzelli with the victory. That's Valjevec, so he has held on to third place.
He's still in third place on the road. They're getting closer to the finish now. Garzelli is in the ideal position now to come off the wheel of Gilberto Simoni. Simoni's under a bit of pressure because he's got to get himself time. That's the most important thing to him, not even the win.
And there goes the opening move from Garzelli. Simoni has made no effort to desist him there. He's going to try and hang on to him, but he can't even do that. I think, they made an arrangement. Garzelli gets the stage win, and Simoni goes for second place overall. Well, the gap starts opening up now. So, finally, Stefano Garzelli has salvaged something from the Giro d'Italia. He's won the stage. The day after, he looked as though he was in terrible trouble. Valjevec here rode very, very well indeed to stay up there for third place, but he can't be very far ahead of the chase.
Well, he's just around about 20 seconds in arrears of those two men who've come in. And now for fourth and fifth place on the road, Dario Cioni and Damiano Cunego. Cunego has just sat there. I doubt if he'll try and sprint to come round Dario Cioni, because he's been sitting on his wheel for the last 10 or 12 kilometres, and he actually has no interest to finish in fourth position. Nothing
to gain now. The bonuses have gone. Cioni's done all of the work. Give him the moment and let him take fourth place, as he's going to do. Cunego today comes in. Let's seek out the clock as they hit the line. 52 seconds down. But that's not going to worry him. He's lost time, of course, to Simoni, but he hasn't lost time to Honchar. Thank you, Dario. Well done. Well, let's have a look first of all at the stage result. It's the GC I'd like to see. Garzelli, Simoni at 2 seconds officially time. Valjevec at 23. Cioni, Cunego, Mazzolini. So, Stefano Garzelli gets the stage win. But has Gilberto Simoni done enough to get second place overall in the Giro d'Italia? He has not, and we are talking 3 seconds. That means had he beaten Garzelli in the sprint, he would have been second.
I don't think he could beat Garzelli in the sprint because he actually sat up just a little bit towards the end, as if he wasn't able to stay on the wheel. 3 seconds is all he was looking for, and that's 3 seconds he's going to regret for an awful long time, but it does nothing at all to the top end of the overall classification.
Well, we don't normally expect any time changes on the final day, and this is a classic final day. It's the flat roads from Clusone to Milan at 149 kilometres. Not a ripple on the race route, just the intergiro sprint, which has been in the arms of Raffaele Illiano after yesterday, when he took the lead for the first time off Crenzo d'Amore. And so Illiano will try and keep himself in the frame. Damiano Cunego now, barring accidents, cannot be beaten in the Giro d'Italia. Here he is chatting with his team. And who is going to win the last stage? Looking down at the boys from Fassa Bortolo, it'll take a brave man to bet against Alessandro Petacchi. But if Petacchi does win this stage, then he sets a post-war record of 9 stage wins.
It's going to be a very special moment if he can. The team are all around him. The team have done very well to steer him through the mountains, because just like any of the great sprinters, Mario Cipollini, Robbie McEwen, or anybody else, they do not like the mountains at all. And I have to say that Alessandro Petacchi is part of that team.
Well, in Milan, they're circuiting the 10 circuits here of almost 3 miles. It's a perfect finish. They're all in the pack together. And there is Alessandro Petacchi looking around as if he was on a track, seeing where all of his rivals are. The Thonak boys trying to bring Usov into play. He's been close. Robbie McEwen now gone home a few days ago, so he won't challenge. In fact, there are no real sprinters left here to do any damage to Petacchi, but he's still got to produce the effort.
Still got to produce the effort, but still has a very good, strong team. Moving up there, you can see 1 or 2 riders from Alessio. They're looking to try and move their man Angelo Furlan up into a top position. But I doubt if he's really got the acceleration now to come around the man who has dominated all of the sprints so far. And there he is in the Ciclamina jersey, right at the helm of the silver train. Jet, they've started to call him here in Italy, just because when he goes past everybody, you can almost see the afterburners.
It is unbelievable. This rider has had a wonderful tour, and more importantly, especially for him, he's crossed the mountains and he's coming out to finish, and he'll finish with a very big lead in the points competition. 8 stage wins so far, just 1 to go if he can make it 9. Everybody there just looking for him to win. I mean, they know the sort of speed he has got. 140 riders, surprisingly nobody dropped out yesterday in that mountain stage, so 140 finishes there will be here in Milan. Bit of a bumping and barging, it looks to me. That's Art Vierhouten of Lotto. Nobody to lead out now. McEwen's gone home.
And Zanotti on his wheel there as well, pretty much bandaged up from that accident he had a couple of days ago. Last 3 riders from Fassa Bortolo on the front, trying to set this final stage up for Alessandro Petacchi in 4th position. Little bit of argy-bargy there, trying to get the wheel. It's always a battle. Everybody is fighting for the wheel of Alessandro Petacchi, because if you can get that wheel, you've got a very good chance of getting second.
That's right. That was Vierhouten bouncing shoulders there with the Argentina rider Barajo. And I think Vierhouten won that 1 round to 3, I think.
Yeah, you've got to be a very solid bike rider to push a Belgian rider off the wheel there. They're coming round this final corner now, and Petacchi is still nicely tucked in there behind his teammates. Now it's down to 2. They're swinging off 1 by 1 as they've done in this very well-drilled organisation that they've developed throughout this 3-week Giro.
Well, Zanotti is the man who's won the battle for the back wheel there of Alessandro Petacchi. Barajo is just behind him. Vierhouten is there, and Pollock is arriving 7th in line. He's been close, but he's never won. He's going to have to alter his sprinting tactics, though, if they're going to beat Alessandro Petacchi, because here comes the last man to lead out now. The final run for the line is Marco Velo, I think, who's taking him towards the line now. Velo moves out of the way. Petacchi sees the finish. Win number 9 is on the card. Marco Zanotti can't challenge. They stay all behind him. 9 stage victories for this great sprinter, which now has given him the post-war record 1 year after Mario Cipollini took the outright number of stage victories in any number of Giro d'Italia.
Well, that was amazing, because I think that was his easiest win that he's had in the Giro. That was a huge advantage. There's Marco Velo congratulating him, and the rest of the team have done a fabulous job for him throughout this Giro. Not only have they let him out on the flat stages, but they've accompanied him over all of the big mountain passes.
And he'll win the points competition, of course, with maximum points again today. The man who'll finish second has been the ever-consistent Damiano Cunego, but he won't worry about that, because this rider at 22 years of age is one of, but not the man who's now got 9 stage wins under his belt, 15 in all, so he's still in with a chance of catching up with Big Mario, but it'll take him a few years at the rate of 9 every year. But Alessandro Petacchi, the champion of the sprints and the winner of this race on points.
Well, it's starting to be a very brilliant year for him, just like last year was, with 6 wins in the Giro, 4 in the Tour and 5 in the Vuelta. I think that one he will really enjoy, because winning in a city like Milano is really something very special at the end of a Grand Tour.